Hello and welcome to OptimisticWellness.com, the Real Story interview series. Today I have here none other than the Sensifizer himself, Jacob Sokol. And I don't know what the word sensify means, but it must be really cool. Because Jacob here is an authentic dude. He writes and video blogs about topics like living the fulfilled life, finding your purpose, finding your passion, and he's got this real New York vibe in all of his videos, and it comes through in his writing. It's got really cool stuff. And an interesting thing about Jacob, he's a philosopher and he also lives life. And that's interesting because usually people are either philosophers or they live life, but Jacob kind of combines the two, and he's got some interesting experiences that we'll be talking about today. So to start this interview off, as I like to do with the Real Story interview series, I'm going to mention a few quotes, a couple of quotes here from Jacob that I really thought were very powerful. So the first one is, don't mistake your thoughts for who you are. Thoughts are nothing more than habits of the mind. You can create new habits in your mind the same way you can create them in your daily routines. I thought that was really cool. And then another quote, you see, when you desire something meaningful, obstacles will appear. It's the way nature works. She tests us to see how committed we are to getting our gem. She makes us sharpen up our vision and find the faith within us to know that this is right for us. By challenging you on your path, she asks you a very simple question. How badly do you want this? Now it's time to decide. And with that, welcome, Jacob. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Josh, that's one hell of an introduction. You're kind of leaving me speechless here.
This is my intention, bro. All right, so the first one, we'll start with your dream job. And you had that when you were in IT, when you were about 24, and you had all these things that society deemed to be part of the dream life, I would say. But you didn't have one thing that I heard about. You didn't have enthusiasm about life, like when you woke up in the morning. And you knew that you had to get to Europe when you turned 25. You were able to get 5 weeks off of work, and you made it to Europe, but you had a strange revelation there. You realized that you weren't your thoughts, that you and your thoughts were different. And you came home, and in the next 6 months, you sold your car, sold your motorcycle, you cut out the cable bill, started packing lunch, just started, little things added up, and you quit your job in 6 months. And I mentioned all this. The question I have for you is, how do you feel about all this looking back and how it impacted Jacob Sokol as a human being?
Right on, dude. Well, first I just want to say thanks for taking the time to talk to me today and having me here in a way where I can share myself in a soulful manner and just express exactly what's going on in my life and how I feel about it, and open up free of judgment in a way where I'm just who I am, and that's the core of what we're looking to speak about, right? So that's a pretty unique opportunity when someone asks you to speak about the core, the soul of who you are, not just, hey Josh, what's going on? What's going on? How's life? How's your job? Yada yada. But really, like, let's tap into a deeper, more meaningful place of what the hell is up with Jacob. You know, who is he? What is he about? What makes him come alive? So I just want to stop and, you know, say thank you for the opportunity to share myself with you, and you being open to that and helping to spread that goodness to the world.
Jacob, that was really, really eloquent and meaningful, and much appreciated about the message of the Real Story interview series. I am very honored to provide you this outlet to share your genuine humanity. Much appreciated.
Yeah, right on, dude. Well, don't make me out to be a saint, because I'm not exactly that. But I do appreciate a good heart, and I feel I have one. So, right on, dude. Well, let's talk about your question a little bit. So, how is what has happened impacted my life? Tremendously. You know, I can't exactly tell you what the specific things were that led me to be where I am today, other than my life and really stopping to embrace what makes me me. And what makes me me is probably shit that most people never want to go through in their life. It's probably shit that you would have, you know, you wouldn't wish this on, you know, I don't want to say your worst enemy and make it out to be some big dramatic movie, but it's just, it's real, you know, it's life, and we all get dealt circumstances, and we all get, we all have challenges, and we have demons and fears, and it's hard. Life is not always an easy thing. So my life where I'm at now is really opposed to running from those things, the things that really scared me, and the things that I repressed for a long time, and the things that I didn't want to deal with, and I kind of didn't know how to address and how to create a life at all, because these things were in a sense tormenting me, and I'm sure people are probably wondering what those things are, and it's just childhood, you know, and going through my own unique set of circumstances. We all get dealt our cards, and now it's figuring out how do we play these cards in a way that we get to enjoy the game. So so that's what it was. It wasn't, I can't say, okay, it was, you know, the time when I was 4 years old when I saw my mom and my dad get into a fight and that totally fucked up my views on relationships with women forever. I can't say it was like one specific thing, but it's just my life as a whole, and where I'm at now is really embracing that and being. So what's special about what I do now is I've figured out that one of my biggest strengths is authenticity, and
yes.
And what's cool about authenticity is that I can talk to you about whatever the hell you want to talk about and not have that subject that I'm looking to stay away from, and just be myself and share in a way that enables us to have a real connection, you know, from the core, from this place. So my yeah, exactly, dude. So my life where I'm at now is a reflection of that. My life is, why am I a life coach now? Because my life was so screwed up growing up. It's clear, because I was doing all kinds of crazy shit that most normal people don't do, and I had to figure out how to turn that into a life that works. It's why I do what I do. But why did I write a book to help people find their purpose? Because I felt devoid of purpose for 10 years. Because when I was 14 years old, I was asking my dad questions like, why am I here? What is my hand? What is this? What is life? You know, like, explain to me what this is, Dad. You know, so imagine him having to kind of come and deal with that situation. So that's why I do what I do. It's embracing my life, the shit that most people wish that they never. I mean, we all have stuff that we've gone through, right? You, me, the people watching, we all have things that we've gone through that suck, and then figuring out how to embrace that, because the challenges are what make us most strong. And I don't mean it in some, you know, like witty type of poetic way, but literally it's the shit that we go through that builds our character and makes us who we are and what people admire about us. People admire certain things about you, people admire certain things about me, and those things that they admire probably came from us going through stuff that they never want to go through in their life. Right?
That's right.
So figure out how to embrace that, and that's what I'm doing with my life now. I'm a life coach. I wrote a book to help people find their purpose. I'm here at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. You know, I just came from hanging out. You know, I was doing some cool stuff. So it's a pretty cool life right now, dude.
That sounds like an amazing life, and that was really, really passionate. I felt that coming from the core, Jacob. That's much
right
appreciated.
on, dude.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. So you said, this is another quote from you. I got quotes, man. People can tell when you're full of shit. We just have that radar. It's part of our survival mechanism on a deep primal level. When you just show up and you really speak from the heart and express yourself completely, people gravitate towards that. And something really special happens when you see someone and you just know that they're real. That they're speaking about what they care about and what they feel about, and they don't have a hidden agenda. That they're just good people, and in 20 years, that's the strategy that's going to pay off. You said that. And the thing about you don't just talk about this. Your blog is you, not just your blog, but you are an embodiment of this message. And anyone who's watching this interview, like, clearly will see that. And I mean, like, look at this, Jacob. You recorded a video of yourself. I mean, you do these things. You recorded a video of yourself doing these empowering affirmations in the shower. I mean, it's you. Like, this is authentic. So how do you go about finding the courage, the chutzpah to really express yourself this way? I mean, is it part of being from New York? Were you born with this, or?
Yeah, right on, dude. So I think it's a bunch of things. Again, it's the unique constellation of things that I've gone through in my life and circumstances that I've been born into that I didn't choose, combined with where that led me in life, and then being able to choose other circumstances that has made me me, and made you you, and made, you know, you who's watching this, you also. So a couple things you touched on. One is that, okay, I did a video in the shower about 2 years ago doing empowering affirmations, and my mindset at the time was, how can I provide world-class value in a way that nobody else is doing it? So that is the more wild, courageous me 10 years ago, probably breaking the law in some way with that type of behavior, and taking that and then saying, here is this adventurous Jacob who likes to go out and, you know, stir shit up a little bit, and how can I do that now in service to help people? And it's what's cool about my life now is that I get to do these things that still have the same attributes of when I was a child and I was being a rebel and, you know, kind of just doing my own thing. But now I get to do that in a way that is deeply meaningful and helpful and of service to other people. So those particular values are values that I've had for a long time, and I just figured out how to compile a life where they work well, not just for myself, but for other people also. And then, so that was the shower thing, was how can I really do something that nobody else is doing, have fun with it, be playful, and you know, do that. And then as far as the authenticity thing, you know, I had this conversation just earlier today. I was out with a homegirl of mine who I've known for maybe 20 years or something, which is really cool to actually, I'm 27 years old, so it's cool to say I've known someone for 20 years. She was in my first grade class. Yeah, it was really cool. So I just came back, and she was asking me about my trip. So I just spent 3 months traveling, 2 months in Asia, 1 month in California, and she was asking me, how was your trip? And I said, Gabby, I said, do you want the real answer, or do you want the answer that you thought you were going to get? And it kind of, she loved it, you know. She was like, well, she was like, I want the real answer. But most people are expecting, oh, the trip was awesome, you know. They kind of see that I traveled here, here, and here, and oh, they're thinking awesome. And when it comes to what I do now, because I put myself out there so authentically on Sensify, that I can't, or I choose not to, but it almost feels like I can't show up to an interaction like this and pretend that it's all good when it's not. If there's some shit going on in my life, I don't want to hide that. I don't want to drag anybody down, but I want to be real, and I want to communicate from a place of, this is what's going on with me. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not pretend that it's not. So when I was traveling, and I had the fortune of having a blog where there's people who read Sensify from different parts of the world. So like when I was in Indonesia, in Bali, I met up with people who read Sensify, and they're expecting to see Jacob on Sensify. And I can't go there and pretend to be happy if I'm not happy. I can look at the optimistic view, I can, you know, reframe the situation. I know all these cool tricks and tips, but at the core of me, if there's something going on, I want to have a relationship that I can communicate that and be intimate in our interaction, because that's, to me, that's valuable, you know. So that's my spiel on where do I get the chutzpah to be authentic. It's from, I want to be me. I don't want to be who you want me to be or who I think you want me to be. I want to be me, and if it resonates with you, then great, and if it doesn't, great also, because I know that you're not the right person for me to be hanging out with.
That's excellent. So Jacob, what's the real answer to how was your trip?
Let me take a sip of water for that one.
Gotcha.
My trip was life, and most people take trips, most people that I kind of know take trips as vacations, and it wasn't a vacation, it was my life, you know. And instead of my life being in New York, my life was in San Diego, my life was in Bali, my life was in Thailand, my life was in Japan. But it's still life. I was still living kind of the same way that I live right now. Are you seeing my cat on the screen by any chance?
Yeah, who's that, Krylon?
It's Krylon right on, dude. Yeah, he's chilling. So it was real, dude. There were times that sucked. There were moments where I was an emotional shit show, and there were moments when I was, living on cloud nine and like, wow, anything is possible with life. So it was full, dude. What stands out for me? What stands out is the people, is the connections, and the ability to kind of be taken out of this real world situation that, how can I best put this? I think when people get into a routine, that routine sometimes prevents them from expressing other parts of themselves that exist, but they're not open to expressing. And when people travel, especially for an extended period of time, and especially alone, that routine is broken, and they create a new routine, and that new routine really enables them to communicate in a way that is a lot more organic and non-conditioned, and you can tap into a place of, here's Jacob, here's his soul, here's Josh, here's his soul. Let's speak from here. Fuck here. Let's speak from here. So I think the biggest part of the trip was kind of being in a shitty situation, and at times it wasn't the entire trip, but at a point in the trip I just felt like shit, and then being able to communicate that with the people I was meeting, and that being all right. I didn't have to fake the funk and pretend it was all good when it wasn't. I was free to be me and experience what I was experiencing, and not be sad about being sad, which is just a vicious death cycle, but just saying, I'm sad, I'm going through some shit, and that's what it is, and I want to talk about it for a little while so we can move past it and then enjoy the rest.
Excellent. So one of the questions that I ask all my guests, to conclude the interview, is to say something to share your humanity with us. But I feel like I'd be insulting you if I asked you that question, because you've done that so much already. So here's a question. I'm going to go back into more of Jacob Sokol's personal story here. You went to the Jets game with Gary Vaynerchuk. That's a big one of the big things. And for anyone who's watching this who hasn't heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a big dude in the entrepreneurship field. And it was an unrealistic challenge. You wrote him an email filled with heart, and he replied back and he said, "Good hustle." And you went to the game. But how did this particularly change your view of reality, say, before this happened?
Okay, right on, dude. Yeah, so that was a defining moment in my blogging career, almost, to say. I don't really consider myself a full-time blogger, although it probably falls into what I do. But what it did was, so the short story is, I was reading the 4-Hour Work Week. Tim Ferriss says there's one small part that really resonates with me, and he says why it's realistic to be unrealistic. And the short story is, he says that the majority of people all shoot for mediocre goals. So that means 99% of people are looking to get in this range, and it makes exceeding in this 99% extremely energy draining, because in order to get to the top of this 99%, you have to compete with 99% of people. But instead, if you take on the mindset that let's go for this 1% of totally unrealistic shit that most people would never dare to dream to do, you don't need to be smarter or play harder or have some crazy ability. You just need to adapt a different way of thinking. And that so resonated with me, because what I was doing was, in my life, by leaving my successful job, was so untraditional that I just said, man, that hits home. So one of the I shared about this on Sensify, and one of the readers of Sensify said, "Hey, dude, that's really cool. I really dig that also. But instead of you just talking about it, how about you actually embody it and prove it to us? And here's a little challenge. You're from New York. Gary Vaynerchuk is from New York. Why don't you get him to go to the Jets game with you? He says he's going to own the Jets one day. Wouldn't it be cool for you to tell your kids one day, hey, I went to the game with the owner of the Jets, and here's the story. So clearly I told this guy, go screw yourself. There's no way I'm going to do this. But I didn't actually send the email that I wrote that in. I just stepped in between that stimulus and the response and said, let me think about it for a little while. And I started to walk around my apartment here, and I'm kind of doing laps around my kitchen and my hallway. And I go downstairs, and I start walking around the block. And at some point, I started to get chills and actually tear up at the thought of this happening, and how if I took on this challenge, I could really not only go to the game with him, I didn't even give a shit about football, but really inspire and show other people that you don't need to settle for living a life that seems realistic but isn't fulfilling you. So that was the core of what that was about. It looked glamorous, Gary Vaynerchuk, the New York Jets, Jacob, yo-yo, but the core of that situation was you don't need to settle for something that other people are telling you is realistic when it's not fulfilling to you. And so, yeah, I went to the game. let me see if I could show you over here. Cool. Keep it nice and authentic, right? That's so nice. Up on my vision board, not my vision board, but up on my board over here, I have, okay, boom. I have the ticket from the game right here, and the letter I wrote to Gary, his response, and right next to Maslow. And yeah, dude, so that was a Jets game, and it was, I communicated with Gary. It was from the heart. It was Gary. I mean, if I read the email that I wrote to him, it was, it was from the heart, dude. That's what it was. It wasn't from here. If I would have wrote it from here, he would have said, go fuck off. But I wrote it from here, and it touched him there. And so for me, what it did was it expanded my sense of what's possible. It just said, yo, you don't need to settle for something that's not fulfilling you, man. You can, I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm not saying it's going to happen right away. I'm not saying you're going to succeed every time. But so much more is possible than we allow ourselves to actually believe. So that was deeply meaningful for me.
Beautiful message, Jacob. And really, really beautiful interview, dude. So where can people find out more about you and contact you?
Okay, I love doing this. So if anybody wants to talk, my phone number is 347-398-2814. I got a call today from someone who I've never spoken to before, and I love to talk. So if you want to talk, hit me up. Besides that, in a more traditional sense, you can email me, jacob@sensophy.com. Check out Sensophy, www.sensophy.com, SENSOPHY. And to answer your question, Sensophy comes from the word sense, as in to feel, and Sophie, as in wisdom. So it's not just the feeling, and it's not just the wisdom, but it is taking the knowledge and applying it in your life in some way that you actually feel fulfilled and better about life.
So that's Sophia. Whoa, you're like combining Greek here, man. That is elaborate.
Yeah, dude, right on.
Really inspiring. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for joining me, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And again, thanks for facilitating the space for me to not only share myself, but in a manner that I'm comfortable opening up to you, and you doing the work that you do to be the person who can get this going right now and share it. Much appreciation to you.
Absolutely, man. Thanks. That's much appreciated. Well, Jacob Sokol, the Real Story Interview Series, optimisticwellness.com. Optimism is the only way.